So I know that people are always talking about how this new generation of kids are probably never going to know about the peak shows we had in our childhood. People listening out there, surprising top 5s when we realize that there are some lesser known shows that I genuinely love with a passion that don't get any love. So today we're going to show them some love and give a big shout out to them, I guess. Firstly, we got The Spectacular Spider-Man. This show really cultivated my love for Spider-Man growing up, and unfortunately isn't talked about as much as it should or could be. This show for its time period of 2006 really embodied the struggles of being both a superhero and a high school student as well. An underrated characteristic of this show is his character development of not just Peter but everyone else around him. A prime example comes from when, after being bonded with Venom and deciding to leave their partnership, Venom traps Spider-Man in a mental prison where he really has to reflect on his previous actions as Spider-Man. The one action he has to reflect on the most is the denial of the murder of Uncle Ben, where Peter could have stopped his uncle's death but instead was blinded in the new power he held. After finding out who was responsible, Peter gets close to crashing out on the shooter until he has his hero moment, and Uncle Ben saying, "With great power comes great responsibility," finally comes to fruition, and Peter realizes the error of his ways. Another aspect of the show I love is its realism of people's descent into villainy, showcasing how Dr. Kirk Connors isn't just a lizard desiring to wreak havoc, but rather someone who's a victim to an accident. Another villain, or villains in this case, are the Green Goblins, with us viewers getting the ability to see Norman Osborn's journey into madness happen after drinking a chemical formula. The sad part was that he generally was unaware of his persona switches after becoming the Green Goblin, but knowing that he was the person inside the suit still ate at him internally. Whilst his son Harry Osborn actually had a nice feeling of bliss after taking the chemical formula, becoming a football star and taking on the role of Mr. Bitches at their high school. But after being caught taking the formula and having to forfeit the school's football championship, he descended into all the negative emotions of violence and revenge, replacing his father as a new Green Goblin. But besides this show's perfect display of character growth or turmoil, probably had the best top 5 theme song in all of action animation, if I'm being honest. Even better than some of these new 2024 shows. Next show we gotta mention is Kabylions Wild Grinders. So Wild Grinders was a 2012-2014 Kabylion show about this group of skateboarder friends who basically skateboarded the damn multiverse. Now as a teen watching the show again, I have to admit, I don't know what the hell I was thinking this was peak, bro. But don't get me wrong, this is a good show. I feel as though I've seen better. But some pros about this show are firstly its animation. The animation really gives the viewer a graffiti or skateboarding type of feeling, where cutters popping out like crazy. Secondly, the skateboard moves are actually realistic, so you don't feel as though these guys are out here doing black magic or something. Overall, I'll give this show a 6 out of 10 because it for sure could have been better. Next up, we gotta talk about a show that's very close to my heart, The Infinity Train. Unfortunately, this show only ran from 2019 to 2021 as it was fucked over by the pandemic. But when I tell y'all this show could be a contender for a top 10 Cartoon Network show, you better believe it. So the premise of this show is that there's a train known as the Infinity Train that appears to those going through turmoil in their life, picking them up and having them go through crazy adventures, but at the same time, teaching passengers how to accept things in their life and move on. Once you're aboard the train, you're given a number, and that number goes down the more you begin to evolve as a better person. But when your number hits 0, a door opens for you to leave the train. But at the same time, your number goes up, you end up becoming even a worse person, making you stuck on the train for even longer now. Each main character of each season in the show follows the pattern of people who are conflicted or are in dire need of personal growth. In season 1, our main character Tulip's parents just got divorced, and Tulip is feeling many different emotions from it, whether it's hate, disgust, anger, and many more. After all these feelings catch up and culminate within her, she becomes a runaway. After leaving her former home, the Infinity Train opens up to her and takes her inside. This ends up signaling Tulip's personal growth, as by going on adventures in the infinite boxcars of the train, she begins to learn self-acceptance and understands that her emotions due to her parents' conflict are justified, and just about how she handles it and copes with those emotions. So finally, after her many adventures on the train, her number finally goes down to 0. She leaves the train, heading straight back home to apologize to her parents. In the second season, it picks up right after an episode of season 1 where Tulip meets a metal clone of herself in a Mirror World boxcar. After Tulip leaves the boxcar, we find out that Tulip wasn't the only one to leave, but her metal clone did too, now going by the name MT, short for Mirror Tulip. Throughout the second season, MT goes through a journey of finding herself as she's now outgrown just being a clone and has her own identity. Whilst going through the journey of embracing her new self for the present and future, things from her past begin to catch up to her, desiring for her to come back to the boxcar and stay as a clone forever. MT runs from this for most of the season until she decides to stand up for herself and finally earns passage to leave the Infinity Train, naming herself Lick as a way to signify new beginnings in the real world. And I'm not gonna lie, I probably could spend more time to cover the next 2 seasons, but why make the video longer? Lastly, we got 2010's Nickelodeon's NFL Rush Zone. Now I feel as though if you were not a football kid, or at least spent a quarter of your time on Nickelodeon, you probably weren't going to see this show. So for the plot of the show, for each of the 32 NFL teams that you have something known as a Rush Zone All-Star, which personifies the football franchise as a whole. And our group of main characters are granted watches that give them the ability to enter the Red Shown, gaining armor and powers to fight out the forces of evil that wish to harm the sport of football. Now this plot may sound goofy on paper, but it's actually seriously good in the show, with our main cast even having the ability to gain specific abilities in the Rush Shown that correspond with the position they play in the sport of football. The fight scenes and 3D animation of the show are incredibly good for a 2010 production, and the bonus of this show is the fact that the villains are perfect cross of both evil and humor, with the main antagonist Wildcard being so into Shredder on how he has to constantly yell at his subordinates, but at the same time being such a villain that concerns you he might actually win in this show. Fortunately, this Nickelodeon production actually lasted longer than others, with it being able to last for 4 years. Now it's time for our honorable mentions. For our first honorable mention, we got the show Sonic X. Now I'm not gonna lie, I was extremely surprised I found out this show was considered underrated because child me used to be obsessed with this show. For those who are able to actually watch the show on Kabillion, they consider it one of, if not the best Sonic animated show. So Sonic X came out in 2003 and followed Sonic being transported to the human world after an explosion involving the Chaos Emeralds. And the premise of the show is based off his efforts to return back to his home world. What this show is most remembered for is his fight scenes though, as for a children's show, our guy Sonic used to really put the hands on people. But by the way, this show is technically an anime, but to me and many others, we just call it a cartoon show, so it's my video, so we'll just let it slide. Our next honorable mention is the 2016 Cartoon Network show known as Lego Nexo Knights. This is for sure one of the more obscure Lego shows, as most shows produced by Lego typically air for longer and are more popular, but if you were to ask me why people weren't really fucking with it, all I can say is I don't know. Cause Nexo Knights was your typical show about 4 heroes, or in this case knights, protecting their kingdom against evil antagonist Jestro. Now to be honest, this show is one of the only Lego shows I watched that gave me actually genuine laugh out loud moments, but even now, I'm still envious of the armor they wore back when the show was airing, because even the kid me was way too obsessed with it. I mean, like, bro, come on, bro, I really need that. For our last show, we got a show that's probably a little more known, but at the same time underrated, known as OKKO Let's Be Heroes. Well, to actually clarify, I don't know if this show is underrated or not, because for some reason most people around me haven't watched the show. It's like even TikTokers are afraid to make a vid on it, but at the same time, I still somehow see its relevancy. But I guess that's why I'm here anyway, so might as well. Anyway, OKKO is a show that revolves around our main character KO, who wants to be a superhero. While trying to achieve his heroic dreams, he works at Guard's Bodega in the Lakewood Plaza. Now at face front, this weak, kind looking show is kind of a fun thing for children, but the action and lore of KO kind of goes crazy. As KO travels deeper in his journey to become a hero, he uncovers secrets regarding things he shouldn't know about. Even KO having his own anti-hero persona that he turns into when he gets mad, called TKO, who believe it or not might be the strongest in their universe. But despite all this seriousness, OKKO is a fun show involving so many different genres, whether it's his co-worker being the daughter of a witch and werewolf while simultaneously studying to become a ninja, or his other co-worker being an alien. Anyway, the wackiness yet seriousness of this show kind of reminds me of Don in some ways. Actually, maybe I'm meat munching, so I know that comment, y'all. Anyways, y'all, this is the end of the video. Just know I appreciate the support that y'all give, like in ways you guys will never ever know. The subscriber amount is going up by the double digits every video nowadays, and it's all attributed to you guys, for real. So the goal for this year is to somehow hit the monetization point and hopefully get a check, cause you know the bag is essential and stuff. Yeah, y'all, peace, I guess.